record on. Let me give you a host. All right, Shannon, you're now the host. We're going to go over feeding tools and resources for our last part of the feeding series with Shannon. Take it away.
Thank you so much. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, let me get this out of the way real quick.
Great.
All righty, everyone. Okay, I'm gonna move this over here. Let me just get situated real quick. Okay, so I know some of you may have been in my other presentation that I did a couple weeks ago. The point of this whole month on feeding was to do a series of different presentations on different topics. So we've gone over kind of the basics of feeding. We've gone over sensory-based feeding needs, and we've gone over feeding strategies, things that we use in treatment and things that can be done at home. And then this is kind of just like the wrap up last presentation. It's not as in-depth or long, but the idea is to give you guys some direct resources that you can use to do some feeding research at home or on the go. I use a lot of these just without thinking about it because they're all over social media, but it's overwhelming the amount of information that's out there. So my idea was to make it a little bit easier on everyone and give you guys some great accounts to follow or things that you can use at home that I think are very helpful. So any questions we'll answer at the end, but I'm just going to kind of take you guys through some different resources. Okay, so we will start off with, I wanted to let everyone know. So of course, it's not one size fits all. Not every feeding trick or resource is going to be appropriate for every single child. However, there are little bits of information out there that could be really helpful. So when in doubt, ask your child's feeding therapist, but this is just a great way to quickly learn some more information while you're scrolling anyways, if you have time to scroll. So we'll start off with websites. The first one that I love is Chicago Feeding Group. This is a group of therapists who have kind of come together to create their own group. And these are people who are presenting on feeding. They do their own therapy, and they've created this website full of different resources. And one of my favorite things is that they have these on-demand courses. So I'm going to take you guys to the website. And of course, you could do this on your own, but I just kind of want to show you what I am usually using this for. Okay, so they have anyone can join their community, parents, anyone. And then they've got this great provider directory over here where you can see, like, if you are moving and you're losing your therapist, you can find another therapist through the provider directory. It's really nice. They have these really great courses. So they've got on-demand events, and then they also do live courses. There were more before COVID and less now. So a lot of the webinars are really helpful. Some of them are free and some of them you'll see cost a little bit, but they've got things for everyone kind of. So of course they won't all be applicable to your child, but they've got feeding complexities, they've got challenging meal times with anxious eaters, transitions to solids, they've got all kinds of stuff. And if you join their Facebook group, and I think their Instagram as well, they will post when they're having like a live event. I actually went and attended one of their panels where they had a bunch of parents who had children that were transitioning off of their G tubes, and they had the parents just talk about their experience. So there's just lots of really cool ways to connect with other therapists, with other parents who are also experiencing feeding challenges. As anyone knows, feeding therapy and feeding delays are such a lengthy process to work on. So it's kind of nice to have that community on your side. I love this group, and I think that they have a lot of really helpful resources and information. So something great to kind of poke around at. Okay. And then they also have products. So they have an Amazon storefront, I believe. And then they've got their own kind of stuff that they put on here. Yeah, this Amazon affiliate link is up here, but they've got books and different things. And we're going to go through some products as well. But I like having therapist recommended products as well. I think that's helpful to know that you're not just getting something random off the internet. It's actually recommended by someone. Okay. So that's Chicago Feeding Group. Feeding Matters. This is a group of families, researchers, advocates, experts. These people are all very passionate about feeding, and they're all very passionate about pediatric feeding disorder. And I put the definition on at the bottom in case you just weren't aware of what that was. It's not often diagnosed, I feel, but a lot of kids that I see probably have this and just haven't been diagnosed with it. The diagnosis wouldn't necessarily make any kind of difference. They're still already in therapy. They're getting the support that they need. But just so you guys know, this website really, really talks about PFD a lot. So I put that on here just so you guys would have it. And this one also has a really, really, really big resource library. So I'm going to open that up. They do have a conference. I've never attended it, but information is over here. And I believe they do kind of like virtual sessions and classes as well. And then in here, we've got family support. There's all kinds of different supports. They've got a resource library. They've got educational materials. There is so much information to poke through on here. So kind of just like a nice little library if you're looking for more information on something. They do have some podcasts. They have some courses. They have tons of stuff. Some of it is for, you'll see, like therapists, but some of it is actually helpful for families as well. So feel free to poke through that. Just another really, really nice website. And then Feeding Littles, I love this group. Oh my gosh, we're gonna go to their Instagram later, or you can go to their Instagram on your own time if you would like, but they are so wonderful. They also have lots of great courses, and they have their own products. They've paired with different companies to sell their own products. I love all of their stuff. They have some courses as well. I have friends who have taken these courses for their own kids, and they love them. So there's lots of really helpful, like picky eating information, ways to introduce new foods. These courses are just great. So another resource to have in your back pocket if you wanted to take that. Of course, if you're working with a feeding therapist, they will absolutely be able to go through information like this with you. However, as we all know, our session time is so limited, and it's hard to get all that information out all at once. So sometimes it's kind of nice to arm yourself with this extra information if you're willing to go ahead and take one of those courses if you're able to. It could be something that's helpful. Okay. And then I had to, of course, throw in CPTWC. We have our own blog on our website. And this blog has lots of different articles about a bunch of different things, but we also have a bunch of feeding-based articles on here. And these are all written by our own therapists here. So we've got snack ideas, we've got transition to cup ideas. There's tons of stuff on here. And then, of course, there's also helpful information from PT, speech, anyone else on here as well on other topics. So just another great resource that I feel like a lot of people don't realize we have. Feel free to check it out. Okay, social media. So I'm guessing most people have Instagram. A lot of people have Instagram. These are my favorite Instagram accounts. I know they're kind of hard to read, but I just typed them as you would have to search them anyways. So this is the exact spelling and everything that you need. Feel free to take a picture, or we will be sending this presentation out. I suggest, if you already scroll Instagram sometimes, I suggest following these, because you're going to be served this information randomly, and it's just really nice, quick info to take in throughout the day. Really easy. You don't have to spend a lot of time researching anything. You're just going to be served these little tidbits of strategies, tips, anything like that. So here's the Feeding Picky Eaters one. I love this one. This is probably my favorite. And of course, like I said, it's not one size fits all, but some of this information can be adapted for other kids, for kids who might not be at this point yet. And it's just great to see how they like to introduce foods to kids. So the first one is talking about how you can introduce food without saying, take a bite or try it, and putting that pressure on. We've talked about that in the previous courses, and the importance of decreasing the pressure and letting the kid feel ready to engage with the food. So the first one is just talking about different ways to play with the food, different ways to talk about the food. And then the second one is talking about ways to introduce maybe a new food or something that's really hard for the child. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about that you can just kind of absorb quickly as you are scrolling through your Instagram, if you have time for that, of course. But I like it, and I always find myself seeing these posts and thinking, I wish I could send this to my parents right now, because a lot of them would benefit from some of this information. So again, lots of different ones. Here's the page again if you want to take a picture of it or anything, but there's a variety of different information. Some of it you'll see, you'll be like, okay, my kid's definitely not there yet, or my kid's past that stage. Great, take what you need and leave what you don't, but it's just a great resource to have. Okay, the next thing I wanted to go through is some books. I know we don't all have time for reading, but parents do ask me sometimes. So I'm going to give you guys some recommendations. These are actually going to be more books that you can use with your kiddos. So this first one, Adventures in Veggieland. This is great. If you are a parent on here that sees me for feeding therapy, I actually have a copy of this, and I'm happy to share it with you. Even if you're not on my caseload, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to share this with you and let you borrow it so that you can kind of explore it before you purchase your own. It is so awesome. I love this one. This was actually written by a speech pathologist, and she does a lot of courses. I've taken a couple of her courses. She's fabulous. So this book is so great because it takes you through different vegetables. They actually do it by season, I believe. I think it's by seasons. And they go through basically like 4 or 5 different activities you can do with that vegetable. So one activity with broccoli will be just play. One activity with broccoli will be cooking it into a meal or preparing it into a meal. Another activity with broccoli will be making it into a dessert somehow. So it's really cool because there's lots of different exposure. And as we've learned over this feeding series, exposure and play and decreasing the pressure with food is key. So this is a wonderful resource and book for just new ideas. There's of course lots of ideas online as well, but I find that I like having it out in front of the child while we're playing with it. They get to maybe swipe through the book and pick what vegetable they want to do that day. And it's just a really fun activity. So it takes kind of some of the guesswork out of like, what should I be doing? How should I be playing with the food? That kind of thing. And all of these are going to be linked on the presentation, so this will be sent out. But again, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to share this resource with you guys. You can make photocopies, whatever you want. This one is called Play with Your Food. So this is, again, another kind of like silly food play. This one actually has like a lot of pictures, and it's supposed to be really silly. I'm sad it doesn't have more photos of the actual product, but it's great. So you can actually flip through it, and there's a bunch of different pictures of silly food, art, silly food, you know, buildings, stuff that they've made with their food. And the way I tell parents to use this is to actually have the kid try and copy it. So it's not giving you the idea or the recipe or anything like that to make it, but you can kind of use the pictures as inspiration. Or if there's one that your kid finds particularly funny or silly, you can go ahead and maybe use that with them and do some creative building with it, that kind of thing. So there's a few of those out there actually. Fast food, this one is actually similar. So it's called fast food, but it's not all about fast food. This is, again, really silly, artistic kids' creations of different foods. So again, like really funny stuff that the kids actually love. And you can, again, recreate some of this if they think it's really silly or funny. That's a great thing to do with them, or just to get new ideas for what you can make. It goes through lots of different foods. So, again, even though it's called fast food, it's not all fast food, it's a bunch of different fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. Okay. And then this one's a food exploration book. It's called Beyond the Bite, or Beyond a Bite. So this is sensory food exploration. So basically just takes you through some different ways that you can expose kids to new foods, through play, low pressure scenarios, and just kind of decreasing that stress around the table by introducing them to these fun things away from the table, so that when they get there, they've already had that exposure to it. So just kind of like a fun thing for kids to play with, look at, and do with you. It's a great positive parent-child experience, I think. Okay. Okay, so now we're just going to go through some products. So these are absolutely not things that you have to buy. However, when parents ask me, like, what should I be using with my kid? What forks? Are there any fun things to make mealtime more fun? These are things that I come back to again and again. Some of my families already come in with this stuff ready to go, and some have never even heard of it. So I like to share it just so families can see. The first one is just construction utensils, and it does not have to be these exact ones. It can really be anything you want. There's so many of these out there, things that are in the shape of construction vehicles or animals. It's really, really a wide variety of things that are available for everyone. So feel free to get creative, look online, see what you can find. But this is one that a lot of kids like. We actually have these at the clinic here, and I take them out with some of my kids sometimes, and they end up loving them. So that's a really good one. This is just another version. We've got animals. Who doesn't love animals? A lot of our kids absolutely adore animals. Why not include them in mealtime and just bring something that's fun and safe to the table? So it seems like a silly thing to add, but just having that like extra, okay, this is safe and this is something that I enjoy, it can help kind of ground that nervous system a little bit just by bringing something familiar to the table. When you guys introduce these new forks to the kids, I try and do it outside of mealtime first and have them play with it with Play-Doh or something that they like, that's just not at the dinner table, so that they can get used to it. And then when they see that again at the dinner table, they already have that familiarity with it and they can feel comfortable. And then this last one is just carrot forks. I just thought they were really cute. Just another example. But if you go online and type in like novelty forks, you will find a billion of them. There are so many out there. So play into your kids' interests, whatever that may be. You'll find something. And then these are so great. You can use these for food play, or you can use them at mealtime. These are really, really fun. A lot of the kids love them. They're mini, so they're great for a couple reasons, right? They're novel, so that's exciting and new. And then the other thing that's great about these is if your child is trying something that's maybe new or that they're more apprehensive about, these are so tiny, it's only going to allow them to pick up a little tiny piece of the food. And one of the things that I talked about a couple weeks ago is that when we're tasting something new, we only want to present a small amount of it. And if the child's going to taste it, we only want them tasting a little tiny bite if they're comfortable with that. We don't want them to be stressed and feeling like, whoa, this is overwhelming. So these allow them to just take that small amount into their mouth. The other great thing is that they are able to control where it's placed in their mouth. So sometimes when we take a big bite of, say, if I was trying a meatball for the first time, if I put that in my mouth and I take a bite of it, it's going to kind of scatter and go everywhere. That feels really scary if you're someone who's being exposed to a new food. However, if you have this little tiny toothpick and you're able to control where you put it in your mouth, whether it goes on your tongue or your molars or right at the front, that feels a lot safer. So I use a lot of toothpicks with my kids in general, but these are just more fun ones. So I love those. And it comes with so many and they're pretty cheap. So if you lose some, you got lots of backups. These are just some like different food play activity products. And we've talked about how important food play is away from the table, just to get kids comfortable with exposure to new foods so that they're not seeing a new food and immediately shutting down. Because when we shut down, we're not hungry, we're not going to eat anything, we're just kind of upset. So, this is just a way to expose kids to food outside of meal times so that they can get comfortable around that. So these things are great. You can use these with literally anything. I use them with like, sometimes I'll use them with peppers or like crunchy foods. I've used them with apple slices. I'll slice apples really thin. I've used them with like thick granola bars. You can cut those. It can literally be anything. And it's just kind of fun to have these different shapes. And I'll also have the kids choose like which one they want. So I'm giving them some of that control back in a situation that sometimes feels very out of control to them. So I'm able to give them something that feels really safe. I get to choose whether we have the bone or the heart today. That feels safe for me. That's the idea behind that. But I love these. And they also make these in letters too. So if you have a kiddo that loves, loves, loves the alphabets, I mean, how fun is that if you could do some food play? No pressure for them to eat the food, but maybe they're cutting their apples into the letters of their name, or they can do all the letters, and then they get to put them together next to each other. And even though they're not eating it, they're still experiencing the food and not having a super aversive response to it. So I love those ones. Those are very fun. I put some like plastic kit type stuff on here because you can do a lot of stuff with these kind of toys. It's kind of like if you were to get like a Play-Doh set, you could use that as well. But this kind of stuff is great for food play, especially if the child is hesitant about touching the food. So if they're nervous to touch it, which is totally fair because it can be nerve-wracking and it's new and they don't know what it's going to feel like on their fingers, you got all of these different options here to interact with the food with. So even if they're not touching it with their hands, that is a-okay. This is just another way that they can play with that food. They can get it with the tongs, they can smash it with the hammer. They're still experiencing looking at the food, maybe smelling the food if it smells a lot. They might end up touching it eventually, but there is no pressure for them to put their hands on that because they have all these other options to use instead. And that's a huge step in the direction of interacting more with the food. They have to feel comfortable around it first, and this is a perfect way to make them feel comfortable. Okay, placemats. I love this kind of activity. This is very fun. So you can get any kind of placemats. I just picked these, but I like to use these during food play outside of mealtime, and we will put food on the numbers or pick food to feed to the animals. Or we'll pick a different food for each planet in the solar system. You can really do anything with this kind of thing, and I like the variety in these. That way you could switch it up. It's a super novel thing when they're not repeating the same one over and over again. It's just another way for them to interact with that food. So it can be super fun. This is a great one. You can find these random places. It just depends. I couldn't find them on Amazon, but I have used these before and they're wonderful. They're essentially just purees. So you can actually make your own if you want to. But some of my kids like that they're in like a little Crayola bottle. It's more fun. It's more exciting. They know Crayola is paint, but this is one that you can actually eat. So I'll have them paint maybe on their food or decorate a cookie, or sometimes we just use these to decorate a piece of paper and make a really cool art project. There's a lot of stuff you can do with these, but even if you don't buy this exact one, you can make your own, put it in a little squeeze bottle from the dollar store, and you're good to go. Really, really easy activity for kids to do. And they think it's fun because you're like, oh, this is food paint. It's just something so different. And then I put a kids baking set on here. This is stuff that you might have at home, but if you don't, or if it's like too big for your kiddo, this is a great way to get kids exposed to different foods in another way where they don't have to be touching it with their hands if they're not ready for that yet. Oftentimes you will see them start to touch it after they're more used to it. So this is just another fun way. You don't have to get this exact one. There's also tons of these little kind of set things at the dollar store, which is where I usually will go get them. But I just put the link to Amazon so you guys can see the pictures. But it could really be anything. Another way to interact with food. And then I put on here things that you probably already have at home that you can absolutely use. So we've got tongs. You can use anything from your grill set as long as it's safe. Tongs are a great way, though, for kids to interact with the food, again, without having to touch it if they're not ready yet. You can use ladles, huge spoons, mixing bowls. I like to do like yogurt mixing sometimes. If kids like yogurt or applesauce, I'll have them put some yogurt in one bowl and some applesauce in the other, and then we kind of mix them together and see what color it's going to be. So you kind of have them play scientist. Sometimes I'll get like a chef hat from Amazon and I'll have them put the chef hat on while we do it just to make it even more fun. And that is sometimes really exciting for kids. Paint and paper. This is something you can literally use with any food. So I will chop up like halves of apple slices or uncooked broccoli. Raw broccoli is great. Potatoes, oranges, kiwi, cucumber, anything. You could take your kid to the grocery store and have them choose it themselves. Chop it in half so that they can actually pick it up and hold it. And then have some paint on a piece of paper or on a paper plate or something like that, and have them dip the food into the paint and then stamp it on the paper. Great way for them to interact with the food. And again, if they don't want to touch it, stick like a big fork in there and let them hold it with a fork and stamp it like that. Just another way. Corn is another good one. I like to like roll the raw corn in the paint and then have them roll it on the paper if they're okay with touching it. And it makes like a really cool pattern. But that's like a really easy one for food play that you can truly do at any time with pretty much any food. I use it as a go-to almost always. The other thing you can do is like blackberries. They already have the super potent color inside of them. So I'll have kids kind of like smash them and then we draw with the blackberries on the paper. Just another way to use that. And then at mealtime, I've got some different things here that you guys can use. This one's very, very, very fun. So this is for decorating your plate. The people look a little creepy, but you don't actually have to use these plates. The other way that I do it is I print out like a picture of a face online, and then I put it inside like a page protector sheet, something like that, or even in a Ziploc bag. And then I have the kid use foods that I set out to actually decorate it. So this can be mealtime, or you could use it for play if you think your kid will get too distracted during mealtime. But just another like really exciting way for kids to have fun and do something new with their food that is low pressure. So lots of different ways that you do not have to buy these. Print it out online, put it in a page protector or a Ziploc. Okay, so there's a lot of variations of these out there. I'm sorry the picture is not better. I don't know why it's so blurry looking. This is kind of a food game plate. And my only thing about these is I never want parents to use them and put like a non-preferred food somewhere on one of these where the kid feels like, oh, in order to win the game, I have to eat the food. That's too much pressure and it takes the actual idea of the food exposure out of the mix. What I would suggest doing if you're going to use one of these plates at a mealtime is having the child pick which foods go in which compartment. It's still all in their control. It's fine if there's nothing non-preferred on their plate. Maybe the food that's a little scarier or non-preferred can sit on the police car or on the helicopter off to the side. They don't have to eat it, but it's still in their view. So that's the only thing I tell families. A lot of families think like, oh, this plate is going to help me get my kid to eat. Well, maybe it will, but when they get to that other food, you're going to see more of that shutdown, or they're going to get really anxious and they're going to stop with the whole activity together. Or some kids will force themselves to eat a little bite of it just to get through it, but they're not actually learning to interact with the food in a way where their nervous system is calm. They're just learning to do it for the reward, whatever is at the end. So I also tell families not to put like a dessert at the finish line. That's like some of these plates are themed that way, But I tell families, don't put anything like super preferred at the finish line. Just have the kid put what they want into each of the compartments. It's just like another fun mealtime way to eat. But we don't want to make it like okay, you have to finish all this food and then you can have your cookie. We don't want to put that up on a pedestal for them. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, these are really cute. I actually kind of want these. I think they're adorable. They're little dinosaur taco holders, but you can actually put anything in these. It does not have to just be tacos. Kids who like dinos, which most of them do, I feel, can put any food in them. It's just another way to make the table feel a little more friendly, a little more fun, a little less pressure. So stuff like that is great. And then silly straws. I've got these right here. So if your child is struggling, if your therapist talks about like decreased strength through the face, or decreased awareness through the face during food or meal time, these are really helpful because they require a lot of suction. Now, for some kids who can't get their lips closed quite all the way really tight around a small straw, these wouldn't be appropriate yet, but when they can, they're great for building some of that strength. I also use these for kids who seek a lot of input orally. So my kids who put their fingers in their mouth, or who like to suck their thumb, or who like to just play with their mouth a lot. I use these because, again, you get a lot of input because the straws are so small and they require a lot of suction through your mouth. So you're kind of serving that need for input by giving it to them in a way that's a little bit more functional, right? This is more functional than maybe sucking our thumb is. So these are a great tool to use. And then even if your kid has none of those things going on, they're just kind of fun for mealtime. You can absolutely use these to make water drinking more fun if they're not really a water drinker, or just to have something novel and exciting at the table. Okay, so we've got time for questions. Does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to answer questions that came up after the last couple presentations. I, of course, was not in the last one or the very first one, but I'm happy to answer questions from any of those or anything like that. I'm here to support and answer anything that you guys may have for me. Okay. If no one has any questions, that's absolutely fine. We can wrap up, and Natalie will send this presentation out. I will send this to her. She can send it out, and you guys will have the links to all these different things. And of course, you guys are always welcome to email me, ask me any questions if you have them. I'm happy to help. Hold on, there's one. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm glad you guys liked it. Thank you all for coming and being present in these presentations. They truly are for you guys, and we really just wanted them to be super helpful, so that you guys can learn as well. So I think we'll probably repeat this one or something like it for feeding in the future again, since people really seem to enjoy learning about all of this stuff. But I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm very passionate about feeding, so I'm glad someone else wanted to come and learn with me.
Thank you so much, Shannon. We appreciate everything that you've presented. These are some really great resources. I learned a few, new ones in terms of books and things like that that are really cool that I'm going to recommend out. Again, if anybody has questions, feel free to email Shannon or the rest of the feeding team at feeding@cptwc.com. Like she said, I will send out the recording and we'll send out the slides so you have everything ready to go to click on and do some happy shopping. And as well as, looking at the Instagrams and all of the other links that she has included in here. This is a really good resource. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. And we will see you next week for the IEP series starting with me.
Yay.